We're going to be joined now by the opposition. We've got Richard Holden, Shadow Paymaster General. Good to have you with us. Apologies, you've been waiting in the wings whilst we were just hearing from the situation with regards to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. You were actually watching and listening to that as it was happening. What's your kind of thoughts with regards to the situation as it currently is? You know, the UK continues to need to play a very active role, not only in trying to bring about peace, but also about ensuring aid gets in.
No, and I think you're right. This is a hugely complex situation. I do think that there's multiple actors at play here. You know, it's not just incumbent on the Israelis, but it's also incumbent on the Egyptians, perhaps, to have a look at whether they can open their border to allow aid through as well. I think the truth is here, there's a humanitarian crisis happening on the ground. We want to see that aid get through in the quickest way to help the most people. I think that's the UK government, also the opposition's view as well. That can only happen, though, when everybody's playing their part and when we're not seeing aid used as a weapon of war. Sadly, that's what Hamas does on the ground in Gaza. I want to see them out of government. I want to see them withdrawing from any form of role in the future, because I don't think we can have Hamas as a role in a peaceful settlement after their horrendous October the 7th terror attacks. And I want to see the Palestinian people, actually have a future. But you can only do that if you're allowing this aid to get through on the ground, and that is going to require huge amounts of international cooperation.
I want to bring the focus back from things abroad to here in the UK. Big news overnight. Changes from the government's perspective with regards to its proposed welfare reform bill. What's your reaction to what we're now hearing?
Well, we'll have to see the full detail, obviously, but I think what we're seeing is what it looks like now the third major U-turn in a matter of weeks from the government, this one around personal independence payments. Look, we want to see reform of personal independence payments, but we also made it very clear that we wouldn't back it unless we could see no tax rises later in the year, if we actually saw a reduction of people on welfare, and also if we saw a reduction in the overall cost. And there's no guarantee, actually, that these proposals were going to deliver that. That's why we couldn't back it as the opposition. Obviously, we saw a huge number of Labour MPs on the flip side also saying that they wouldn't back these reforms either. And, you know, after we saw the grooming and rape gangs reversal, that national inquiry earlier, just a few weeks ago, Kemi had been banging on about that since the start of the year, at least in PMQs. And it's been dragged Labour kicking and screaming to actually having that national inquiry. We've also seen those changes on winter fuel. Again, a big Conservative fight we had last year, get hundreds of thousands of people signing up with our petitions online to help deliver that change. And now this third change on PIP. And I really, with a majority of this size, I don't think I've ever seen a government having to reverse its policy platforms so quickly under pressure, yes, from its own side, but also from the opposition. It's quite clear that there is no leadership at the top of the Labour government, with Rachel Reeves going one way, Keir Starmer going another, and policies changing by the week.
If they were here, Labour would point out that your party U-turned on who was going to lead your party about 6 times in the course of a very short number of years. So kind of changes are not unique, are they, to Labour or to the Conservatives or to any other party? They would argue, look, heavens, we're listening, we're making changes.
I mean, we're not seeing any changes, we're not seeing any big U-turns under Kemi's leadership. She's taking a very thoughtful approach to this sort of thing, outlining our key principles, like we have on PIP, and then taking those policies forward from there.
And you've outlined your key principles with regards to the welfare reform bill. As and when you get more information, if those boxes of reduced welfare budget, getting more people into work and not having to have tax rises are met, will you support the government?
I think there's every chance that we would, actually, because we want to see welfare reform, and we've always been very clear that when the government does the right thing, we will work with it. So that's the reason we'll back their national inquiry into grooming gangs, which we proposed, but they've now come on board with. But I would also say, look, we've seen since the general election a big change, right? We've seen national insurance go up through the roof on businesses. That's actually driving more people into unemployment. We've now seen 100,000 people more on out of work benefits than 12 months ago. I'm really concerned about the direction of travel more broadly of this government, and we will call them out, and we will rightly call them out when they do things that we disagree with. But we will obviously back them if they do the right thing as well, even if they're dragged there kicking and screaming.
It's curious to me, Richard, with the greatest respect, you say you're here for welfare reform, you back welfare reform. The Prime Minister says he's reforming the system that you put in place over the course of 14 years. You're kind of arguing, it sounds to me, and do correct me if I'm wrong, that you're backing the reform of all of the things that you built yourself.
No, well, actually, if you have a look at it, actually, when we're in government, we introduced universal credit, something that Labour opposed tooth and nail, but now accept is the baseline. Obviously, the pandemic threw up all sorts of different challenges, particularly around PIP and some of the payments for incapacity benefit and around some of those very difficult areas around disability. We obviously need to see reform there in the long term. We're not arguing against that. So I don't think there's any inconsistency in our approach at all. We've been very clear. If we can see a reduction in cost, if we can see a reduction in claimants, and more people in work, and also no tax rises, then we'll look seriously at a reform package brought forward by the government. But at the moment, there's nothing like that on the table. So, we'll really have to see with this sort of U-turn overnight exactly what the government's proposing.
Shadow Paymaster General Richard Holden, always good to have you with us. Thank you.